Hey folks, I'm Dirty Dan and welcome back to Greasy Boy Customs. Today we're talking about something very serious, brakes. Let's go ahead and get rolling on this thing. This is the start of a three-part series where we are going to discuss brakes. Whether it's a restoration you're doing, a custom hot rod or rat rod, or something really wild that nobody's ever seen before. In this first episode, we're going to work on the brake lines. Now, some people get really frustrated with the brake lines, especially when it comes to flaring. We're going to show you some cool tools to help you out with flaring your lines. We're also going to discuss routing them, connecting them to the rubber hoses, mounting tabs, and how to secure them correctly to the frame so you don't have a failure in the future. Let's go ahead and get started. First things first, the brake line. There are a couple different options of brake line out there. This is a steel brake line. They do offer other materials like copper. However, the copper is softer. Yes, it's easier to bend, but it's more prone to getting crushed, smashed, pinched, broken. The steel is a little more durable, and they make different versions with anti-corrosion coatings on the outside or a bare steel line like this. Most of the brake line that you're going to run into using on classic vehicles is going to be a 3/16 or a quarter brake line. There are 5/16 and smaller sizes as well that you may run into, but we're going to go with the typical size, and this is going to carry across all the sizes that you're working on. You need to bend this brake line, right? It's not just straight down your frame, so how do you bend it? Well, I'm going to show you a couple different ways we do it. First, I'm going to show you the old school method. Anybody who's had to make a brake line in a pinch, you just bend it with your hand, right? No big deal. I bent this one with my fingers, and you see it just gets a little flat on the inside. It didn't really damage the brake line, but you can do better. The best way to do it is actually use a tubing bender. This is one style right here. I'll stop and show you guys a couple different options that you can buy on your own that are maybe a little bit less expensive and also work very well. This one is nice because it has indicators to show you the different degrees that you're bending the line, and also depending on what size line you're doing. This one does 3 different size lines. And because of the way this thing is set up, it allows you to put the line in there and with a nice smooth action, make a nice clean bend up to about 180 degrees. You really can't do that too well with your fingers. You can do it, but not as good. So we're going to put a line in here and we're going to bend it 90 and then 180 degrees and show you how it turns out. We have the line in the tool. They have these nice stops right here for the line to sit against. You can take a marker and mark your line where you want it to go, and you just simply roll it around. And bam, we're at 90 degrees. That's a nice clean bend. It hasn't crimped the line at all. It looks great. And then if you want to continue, you can roll it around to 180 degrees. And there you go. That's a really nice clean bend, no crimping, no pulling. It looks great. And if you need to go a little more, you can even manipulate it by hand just a little bit. And you can make this really nice tight bend to get into interesting spots if you need to do so. The next fun part, you need to cut the brake line, right? Well, there's all these different cutters and tools available, and there's even some tools you may already have. Let's go over a couple different options, good and bad points. A lot of you are probably doing this at home by using a cutoff wheel or a cutoff disc on your angle grinder, or if you have a pneumatic cutoff tool, that's just fine. You just need to pay attention to a couple things. You get a little bit of burrs at the end. It does make a clean cut, but it also makes it hot as well, and sometimes that's kind of annoying when you go touch the end of it. I'll show you how it cuts. We're just going to cut a little piece off here. So overall, not a bad cut, but if you look inside the line, you can see it's a little burred up, and you're going to have to take a tool that goes in here and actually clean those burrs out. Otherwise, it's going to give you a pretty crappy flare. You've also got some cuts on the edges that are kind of ragged. I'm going to show you the best option. Right here, you have different types of cutters. They do make bigger versions of this that have a tool that flips out to burr the end of the line. These are pretty much the same. They're just 2 different brands, and this one is a ratcheting one that I've never used before, so we're going to try that out. With most of the tubing cutters, You just open it up. You've got 2 rollers here and a blade that cut the line. You just slide your line in like so, and then tighten it up. And then you just turn it. Turn it a couple times. Tighten it up a little bit. Turn it a couple times. Tighten it up a little bit. Some people do this differently. The big ones are easier to use, I suppose. All right, let's cue the hyperlapse. And there you go. You can see it's a nice clean cut. There's not a lot of burrs in there, but you still need to clean that out just a little bit. Let's go ahead and try this ratcheting one that I've never used before. This is supposed to make the job easier. I don't know how true that is. Oh, look at that. That's fancy. The same theory though, you just got 2 rollers on the bottom, feed your line through, tighten it up. Look at that, it spins around for you. That's pretty nice, and it still takes just as freaking long to cut. Let's talk about the part that gets most people, and that's flaring the brake lines. Either you forget to put your flare nut on after you flare it, and you have to cut it and redo it again, or you're using one of these cheap pieces of garbage that never quite flare it just right. Yes, it's possible, but it is a pain in the ass. There are better options. That's why your dad went for cigarettes and never came back, because you suck. Everybody always loses the adapters that go in here, but there are other options. There's a hydraulic option like this. That version allows you to flare it on and off the vehicle with a hydraulic hand pump. That works just fine. It has pre-formed dies. You set the depth, do it, you're good to go. Not a problem at all. I've used them before. There's several different brands that make them. That's just one. Then there's the option that I favor the best, and that is the vice-mounted Eastwood option. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. First thing you need to do is select your dies. They are labeled in several different spots. This one is 3/16, and if you notice, each side is different depending on the type of flare you want to do. All you do is slap it in there, stick your line in, and then you're going to fold this over, lock in your pin. The first selection you want to put it to is option 0. This sets the depth. Snug this down a little bit, but not too tight so you can still move the line in there. Grab your handle, and we're going to go ahead and just push it until it's flush, and that sets your depth. Lock it in, you're good to go. We're doing 3/16, so you want to make sure you go to 3/16, option 1. There we go. Do that until it bottoms out. Perfect. Now we go to option 2, 3/16. This makes the flare. Again, bottoming out. Simple, easy. Break your lock loose, flip it out, open it up, and there you go. You have a beautiful, perfect flare that nobody can ever talk crap about. Now let's talk about securing your brake line to the truck or car, chassis, frame rail, whatever you're running it on. Some people like to use things like little metal clamps that hold it down. The downside to that is a metal clamp is eventually going to rub and vibrate, and it may wear a hole into your line. You don't want that. So I recommend using these rubber P-clamps. You may already have these on your vehicle if this was already equipped with brakes and everything was already run. If you don't, you can buy universal ones like this from companies like Speedway. Again, pretty inexpensive. They do make options like this that weld on, and they do also have other options that have a 90-degree tab on the bottom so you could bolt it to your frame. It's also very important to make sure that your line is secured. We're going to pretend that this tape right here is our frame rail. We're going to run it, bend it, flare it at both ends with our line nuts, and then put P-clamps on and simulate us bolting it to the frame. Take a closer look at what we did. Look at that. We got really nice looking flares. Those are gorgeous. You got P-clamps secured about every foot or so to make sure that they're not moving. We've got our tab locked in place for our rubber brake line, which will be secured to the frame. and you've got your line nice and tight there. There you go. Pretty simple. Well, that's going to wrap up this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed everything I did. You now know how to bend, cut, route, and flare your brake lines and the different tools available and techniques that may work for you. I hope you enjoyed this information. I hope you use it. If you have any questions about the tools or the things that I did today, please feel free to message me at greasyboycustoms@gmail.com, and watch out for 2 more episodes coming up where we are going to go further into the brake systems and discuss other things that you may want to know when building or repairing your custom ride. Until next time, happy hot rodding.